Hey guys, I hope you're hungry. My name is Jericho. I am joined by CyannSentry, and this is the Full Instance channel. And on today's War Story, we will be discussing the newest movie in the X-Men franchise, Apocalypse. So what are the first thing you'd like to say about the movie?
Well, first impressions, it was pretty good. I really I had a good time watching it, but it had a lot of issues, mainly awful dialogue, just terrible.
Yeah, I made the joke as we were leaving the theater that the biggest problem with the dialogue to me was a lot of the attempts at comedy fell really flat.
Very.
And it was just it sounded like it was missing a laugh track. Like that was like the caliber of the jokes and the way they were delivered. Like you could just hear just like a
joke time. Let's change the entire tone.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was poorly written. But it still had a lot of great moments and great things about it.
Right.
The costumes in particular, the costumes and the set design and the character design, they were all fantastic. This rendition of Nightcrawler is one of my very favorite costume designs for him that I've ever seen, which is really saying a lot for me because he's probably literally my favorite character. Any comic books.
I agree that I thought the movie had a lot of visual flair, and I thought that was its biggest strength. But for Apocalypse himself, I thought he looked kind of goofy, and he did not really come across as menacing to me.
I'm gonna disagree with that. He definitely had this sad sort of power to him. Which we'll get more into when we talk about spoilers, but I don't know, he had a quiet kind of strength behind him that I definitely read, but of course I grew up watching the X-Men comics and the cartoons, so a lot of that may have been just kind of left over because I know what he's supposed to be. I don't know, but I thought the character design was cool too. I liked the way they incorporated the weird mouth thing that he has.
Yeah,
you know?
I thought he had presence, and I thought it still worked, and he was still an imposing character. But I thought just at first glance when you look at him, compare how he looks to Darth Vader, or
why?
Because they're the same. It's the visual design for your bad guy. It's supposed to be striking.
It's different though. Not every bad guy is gonna be Darth Vader. It can't be because Darth Vader's Darth Vader.
I don't know. I disagree. I think that it could have been. I don't know. I thought that was not a strength of the movie in the case of that character specifically. Although I thought that a lot of the things they did visually were really good. One thing I thought of, well, I guess we'll save it for the spoiler part of our discussion. So what are some other things you thought?
Well, I'm having issues thinking of anything, which probably says a lot.
Right. One thing that I think the X-Men movies are starting to struggle with is kind of under their own preponderance and their own weight with having, this is the 8th movie in their continuity. And I know that X-Men 3 and Origins Wolverine had both been basically, if not outright, written out of the continuity. But still, there still is callbacks to it. They even make a joke in the movie about them existing.
Was.
So you still benefit from knowing what happened in those movies, which is the point of shared universe continuity. So, but I think that, for example, First Class was supposed to take place 20 years before this one, because there's exactly 10 years between First Class and Days of Future Past, and exactly 10 years between Days of Future Past and this. Well, not to the day, but 10 years. So, I mean, of course, in the case of Mystique, she's basically ageless, so it doesn't really count. But it doesn't look like Charles has aged 20 years.
No, definitely not.
Or Quicksilver, especially, has aged 10 years between the last one and this one, when he looks basically exactly the same.
Yeah.
Maybe, like, I mean, the real time difference is what it looks like. It's like a year.
And I was trying to like make that make sense with his powers, maybe like because of how fast he goes, maybe it aged him slower, but that doesn't make any sense at all. It
Yeah.
looks like it would work the other way.
Right, yeah, if anything, he would age faster, because his metabolism would move faster.
Yeah.
And like when we were talking about it, like the only way it really would make sense is for Magneto to be like 50 years old by now, which I guess isn't preposterous from how he looks, but that's not how he's presented as a character.
He looks like at most 40.
Right, like just turned 40.
But yeah, it's not completely beyond the realm of believability that he would be 50.
Right, but like just like because it depends on the other movies and feeds off of them and all that, like now you have to ask yourself those questions, and it takes you, and I mean, it doesn't take you out of the movie, but it is something that you're like, wait a second, how does that make any sense?
Right.
And so midway through the movie, the heroes get separated, and some of them go to the Weapon X facility in Canada, and they run into Wolverine. And that's another scene that I thought, I mean, I guess maybe I'm wrong about how the timing is supposed to work, but I thought that Wolverine, that it doesn't really make sense for Wolverine to still, because the last time we saw Wolverine in Days of Future Past was when Stryker picks him up. I believe it's either the last scene, one of the last scenes of the movie, or the after credit scene. So now this is 10 years later, and they rescue him. So
Yeah, but he's with the Weapon X program for a very long time.
yeah, and like I said, I guess I didn't understand like how long he was supposed to be there.
Like he's supposed to have all that time. I think it's supposed to be. I don't know. I'm confused now, but all the time with like Deadpool and all the other the group. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Did that already happen in this
Yeah, exactly. Like the fact that we have to have these questions.
It is confusing, but I mean that's time travel. If you're gonna have time travel in it, it's gonna mess with your head a little bit.
Right, and I defend Days of Future Past. I thought it was really good, but it really just makes things more confusing. Like it, I don't know. It just feels like it's kind of unraveling.
It felt to me like, looking back, like, oh, we're gonna have this huge epic disaster happen. Crap, how do we come back from that?
Right.
Okay, we better go fix it. How do we do that? Well, we gotta go back in time. Okay, well, how do we do that? And then they just kind of made stuff up until they made it work.
Like they need some like official like leaflets to hand out and be like, okay, this is canon now, this is not canon now, and this is where we are.
Right.
And I was just reading online that Bryan Singer, the director of 1, 2, Days of Future Past, and this, said that he wants to do one more movie with what's his name? Cyclops, with the old Cyclops and Famke Janssen, who's the old Jean Grey. Like why?
Yeah.
To just make it more confusing.
I don't.
And I guess it was just because they don't like Part 3, or X-Men: The Last Stand, I should say. And I mean, I would agree that it's probably the weakest X-Men movie, but I don't think it was worth throwing the continuity into such disarray and confusion just to
Have a chance of fixing it.
Right, especially since the main thing they did is bring some characters back to life, but like that's just what happens in superhero movies anyway. Nobody, when Professor X dies in Last Stand, nobody was like, well, I guess there'll never be Professor X in a movie again. Like, it's just, okay, how are they going to bring him back? So, I don't know, ends don't justify the means to me. But we're kind of losing the plot here. So let's, speaking of plot, I guess now will be this more spoilery part of our discussion where we talk about, you know, what exactly happened in the movie now that we've kind of gone over our first impressions, which are hesitatingly positive. So, earlier I made mention to some visual stuff I really liked. So at the very end of the movie, Magneto, who has become one of, I'm sorry?
I just had a thought, go ahead.
Okay. Who is one of Apocalypse's 4 horsemen. He decides to once again stop being a bad guy and help our heroes. So to stop Apocalypse from going to murder Charles and the young Jean Grey, he like throws 2 giant pieces of metal in his way to make an X. I thought that was really cool.
Another cool thing that Magneto did visually was he started Apocalypse gave him the power to basically manipulate Earth,
Mm-hmm.
and all of his like little fragments of Earth and everything had very definable magnetic lines, like you see like when you're playing around with the magnetic powder as a kid and you have the magnets and it makes those pole lines.
Mm-hmm.
It had that formation, which I thought was really cool. I got excited at that because I'm a geek.
No, I liked there was a lot of visual flair, like I said before. That's definitely one thing that you can't take away from Bryan Singer.
Speaking of which,
Go ahead.
Storm's character, she looked awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I was really, really, really happy with that.
I thought she was easily the most successful of the young X-Men,
yeah.
like by a pretty good margin. I liked the new Nightcrawler, and
I have more to say on that in a minute.
the new Cyclops I thought was like I could imagine him growing up to be the jerk that he was in the first three, so I guess he was successful even though...
Alright, disclaimer on that, I hate Cyclops. Like, passionately despise him. For no good reason, really. I just think he's a tool, and... Except for, what's the cartoon series? X-Men...
Evolution.
He was cool in that, but every other version I've ever seen of him, I just hate him. So... This was no different. So as far as Nightcrawler goes, polar opposite. Are y'all celebrating?
What?
Are y'all celebrating?
No, that's just the Tusken Raider taunt. One of them started doing it, so we all started doing it.
Okay. Nightcrawler. As a middle schooler, I had quite a huge crush on Nightcrawler. And like every version of him I've seen up to date has given me like a certain like feeling, not like, that sounds kind of weird, but you know, like there's a certain emotion attached to him that
Yeah, it just...
I get in most versions, and I didn't get it in this. And he just felt different than Nightcrawler. He didn't feel like a Nightcrawler, but like I said before, the character design was wonderful. Love that. Love the blue streaks in the hair, and his costumes had like kind of subtle allusions to some of his canon costumes from the comic books. So that was exciting for me. But I don't know. I guess just the feeling of him, and I don't think it's the actor's fault. I think it's once again the writing. I didn't get what I normally get from that character.
Right. So one thing, one problem I sort of had, I guess not really a problem with the plot. So the Apocalypse's first goal when he is awakened is that he wants to get his 4 followers, like he has done throughout history, as we've seen in the trailers. That's his big thing is, you know, the 4 horsemen of Apocalypse. So I'll grant you that he was a little bit spoiled for choice, that he didn't realize it, that there were a lot more mutants now than when he was last alive, and that's all fair. But Angel? Psylocke?
Psylocke was cool though.
She was cool, but all she could do, she just had a lightsaber.
Yeah, basically.
Like,
but, I don't know. I feel like he definitely kind of... Ooh, this is a cool mutant. It must be destiny that I should meet them. They must be my other horsemen, and then kind of claim them.
So his big plan was to use Magneto's power over the Earth, like you mentioned earlier. He could Apocalypse can soup up mutants' powers. So he gave Magneto the ability to feel the metal within the Earth, like Toph in Avatar, and to cause giant earthquakes to destroy the world was basically the idea. So I think it was telling about how Angel was maybe not his best pick when the best way he could augment his powers was give him slightly nicer wings. But so I thought that was kind of weird. One thing I did really like that this movie did is at the end, the final confrontation between Apocalypse and Charles was actually in the astral plane, which comic book fans and show fans too, right? That was I know it was in X-Men Evolution.
It was in the regular X-Men too, yeah.
That it was just like the battlefield of the mind, and I thought that was really, really cool to see. I liked it a lot.
Really cool.
And I don't like Jean Grey. I don't like the Dark Phoenix saga,
No.
but how it was teased and showing it, I thought was kind of cool. I don't want them to do it again, especially since X-Men 3 was such a failure when they tried it before. But of course they will, because it's their big. It's like Venom and Spider-Man. Even though it hasn't really been successful, they'll still try again and again because, or like the Death of Superman. Like, it's not a well-received comic book arc, but it was popular and sold well, so let's try it. But I mean, it was still kind of cool. I have to admit.
The cool part about it was just the visuals, though. Again, like,
yeah.
It was after she had her freak out moment, she was just kind of surrounded in this phoenix-shaped plane, and that looked cool. But again, I don't care about Jean at all. Like, she's. It even referenced Cyclops early because I hate him, but I don't care enough about Jean to hate her.
Right.
I care more about Jubilee, who only had like 4 lines in the whole freaking thing.
Right. I think that just a big overlying problem with the X-Men movies is style over substance. Would you agree with that?
Of the recent movies, yes.
Yes, yes.
X1 and 2, no, I don't agree.
Right, yeah, I was speaking of this newer trilogy, and I think that this was like not quite as good as Days of Future Past, I would say, but not even close to First Class. That still is by far the best X-Men movie to me. Like, it's really in a league of its own, in my opinion.
I still love X2, but I think it's mostly because it had such an emphasis on Nightcrawler. And while we're back on the subject, the teleportation was really off in this one. Like, it didn't have the sound, it didn't have enough of a cloud. Like, okay, it had a little bit of one, but the sound effect and the visual effect of the teleportation in X2 for Nightcrawler were perfect. Why mess with perfection?
Right.
Just copy what they did.
Yeah,
they even had, like, they had so much work put into it. Like, I watched some stuff about how they came up with a design for the cloud, and they were like putting inks in different viscosities into water and seeing how they balloon out and everything. And it looked really cool, so why mess with it?
I thought that the teleportation in X2 had like a real like impact to it and a real like immediacy, like it was like they were getting ripped out of where they were, and this was just kind of
easier to follow.
Yeah.
Like this one, I don't know. It seemed more just kind of all over. I couldn't follow a lot of what he did, and I know it's a little campy, but in X2 they would do some slow-mo to show how fast he's going and what he's doing exactly. And I understand why they didn't do that. They didn't want to repeat the past, and they didn't want to slow things down, and they didn't want to use the gimmick that they were saying was Quicksilver, but it was still hard to follow.
Maybe it's probably giving them way too much credit, but maybe like the wild nature of how the teleportation appeared to this is like because he's not good at it yet.
Yeah, maybe. I'll accept that.
But we shouldn't have to come to those conclusions ourselves.
Yeah. And he didn't show any signs of not being that good at it yet. Like, he literally did it when he was a baby. That's why he's not dead.
Right.
If you don't know, for one of the storylines anyway, is his mother in the comic books is Raven, aka Mystique. She is in disguise as just a normal person. It's Raven Darkholm, and gives birth to him, and he's blue. And most mutants don't show their powers at all until they become like puberty age.
Right, and that's on purpose.
Right, but Nightcrawler was different. He was different from birth, and she saw, she had this blue furry baby. What the heck? So
furry baby.
Yeah. So she like dropped some over a waterfall. Some people say that some gypsies saved him. Some people say that his father Azazel saved him. Some people say that he just teleported himself down.
Yeah, Azazel, the one that could teleport from
the
First Class.
But
So, how do you feel about? It seems like it's very unlikely, if not already proven false, that Mystique is going to be his mother in this.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen again. Why?
So like you're sad. You wish that they would keep that part of the character.
I thought that was cool. Like the
Yeah.
It seems like part of the appeal for Nightcrawler is that he was so different from birth, and he can't hide it ever. It's all out there for everybody to see. Like, Mystique can hide it when she wants to.
Right. As much as she fusses about it, at least she can.
Yeah, but he can't until he gets like some device from Professor X and everything, and he has issues about using it sometimes. But whatever. The point is, he himself cannot hide it, and I feel like that's something that a lot of people can relate to, is that they feel like freaks that they can't hide it ever, and they feel like a rejection like Nightcrawler had from Mystique. So why not keep that connection, that like emotional something that people can really relate to, of being completely rejected by someone important to them.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's definitely a missed opportunity, and I wonder how much of it is like they don't want Jennifer Lawrence to be a mom. They want her to say like
Young and sexy.
Yeah, a sex symbol for the movies.
Right. It's definitely. It's more than likely that their whole point, but that doesn't make it any better in my mind.
No, that's worse.
Yeah. So speaking of Jennifer Lawrence, you were unimpressed with her performance in this one.
I thought that she seems kind of checked out. Like when I compare her performance in this to Hunger Games, it seems like she just does not have the same attachment to the source material and just is less present. And it's not even that she's doing like a bad job necessarily. She just like, I feel like,
Phoned in.
yeah, like.
Can I counter that?
Yeah, of course.
I feel like what you're picking up on is Mystique being checked out, being distant, because she's been hurt so much in the past. She doesn't want to feel any of it. She wants to just kind of disengage, do what she needs to do, get it done. She'll process the feelings later, and just kind of disassociate from it all. So I feel like that was a character choice by Jennifer Lawrence. That's how she saw Mystique in this one, because she was very distant from everybody. She kept saying she wasn't a hero, she didn't want this, didn't want that, didn't want to be Mystique, she didn't want to show that face, she didn't want to be the symbol. So I feel like that was her saying, no, I'm not that person, not so much as Jennifer Lawrence saying, no, I'm not Mystique.
Well, okay. But then at the end of the movie, when she's completed her arc and realizes that she can be a hero to them and can teach them, I still feel like I still have the same problems.
Did you?
Yeah.
Well,
but I don't know. It definitely merits a second viewing, like trying to, really examine that part of it.
I felt like at that point she was more in it, kind of comfortable with it, and just with the others. Like, again, going back to Hunger Games, when Katniss accepts that she's the Mockingjay and she's going to be the symbol for the revolution, she resists at first, and then she kind of is okay with it, and I got that same kind of acceptance.
Yeah. Okay, so speaking of people with character arcs, I thought that Quicksilver had a very interesting arc in this. I was very, very impressed and happy with his character in this.
Definitely.
I really liked him in Days of Future Past. He was easily the highlight of that movie. But when he was still able to have his awesome action scenes, still able to be a funny character, but also show real growth and emotion and personality, that's where you have a great character.
Right.
I really, really like how they made no bones about that Magneto is his father. That was a huge part of his character in this movie. And I also really like that he didn't tell him yet, and they can keep that going in the future. Like, I really have no complaints at all. I thought that he was easily the best part of this movie too.
Yeah, he was awesome. I was very, very, very happy with that.
So he had two big slow motion scenes, like the one in Days of Future Past. One saving the school, and then the second one, like the first one where he's saving the school, is very similar to his scene in Days of Future Past. The second one, he's just beating up Apocalypse, and it's a lot shorter, but I really, really liked it. I thought it was nice to see like what he can do when he's not just trying to save people or be funny. Like when he's like, okay, I'm gonna kick this dude's ass now.
Right.
So, I don't know. It was really cool to see.
It was. I liked that. Yeah, he had a lot of heart to him, and that's a lot of Evan Peters' strength. I feel like from watching American Horror Story with him, he can really get across a lot of heart and emotion without saying anything, literally. Like in the season where he's basically Frankenstein's monster, he comes back to life, and he can't talk for several episodes. You still connect with him so much, you kind of want to cry. But so he's really good. I'm glad he found that those moments in this one, and he wasn't just joking around.
You mentioned that like he shows a lot of heart. That's the problem I have with basically all of the young X-Men, besides maybe Storm.
Yeah.
That I just felt that they were not. I don't know. And we'll have to see. They're child actors.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, not child, but young actors. A lot of them were basically unknowns. I know that Jean Grey is Sansa Stark in Game of Thrones, but I don't think the young Cyclops has done much of anything. So we'll definitely have to see how they grow into these characters over, future movies.
Yeah, it's hard for me to separate the character from the actor on Cyclops' point, anyway.
Yeah. So I think that's more or less what I wanted to cover. Is there anything else you wanted to mention as we wrap things up?
I think that's it. So
Okay.
I would say worth seeing. Just
Yeah.
don't go in expecting it to be the best one.
Yeah, temper your expectations. I would say it's an easy 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I think that's fair. 6.5, 7 out of 10.
Right. And like I said, not quite as good as Days of Future Past. Not really close to First Class, but still, I think I probably like in later years when I've seen them both many times and they're just other superhero movies, I'll probably end up thinking that it's the better movie than Batman vs Superman.
Yes, yeah, I already think that.
Although I don't think I enjoyed it as much as Deadpool, and certainly not as much as Civil War.
No, definitely not.
But yeah, it's worth it. It's worth the price of your ticket. And at the end of the day, I mean, that's really what matters most. So thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the Full Instance channel so you can see war stories like this every Tuesday and Thursday, but there's content every single day. Thank you so much to CyannSentry for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
And that'll do it for us today. I don't know about you guys, but we're full.